G'day guys, and in this video I'm going to walk you through my Semi-Auto Gear Up Recon. So let's start off with the build itself. At its core, this is a HPA semi-automatic supercore blaster. So this takes compressed air or my LPA compressor setup. The build is originally based on an orange Recon from the Gear Up line. Now the Gear Up line was a kind of rare or limited edition line that Nerf released back in the day with the Vortex blasters. The blaster takes half-length darts and I use my Talon system to feed it. I also have in here a Create with Ezekiel Talon adapter so that I can take katana mags and Talon mags if I so choose. However, Talons are the elite option. The best thing that I like about this magwell is that it's flared at the bottom so I can slam mags in really easy while I'm out on the field. So that's kind of a blaster overview. Next, let's move into the aesthetics. As you can see, the main attraction to this blaster is the minimized Recon kit created by Boys. It's this super aggressive unibody design that I think looks really awesome and at home on this blaster. As I mentioned, it attaches to the blaster in a unibody design with these black pieces down here attaching it to the blaster and then some screw ports at the front, but this orange piece runs the length of the blaster, making it very sturdy. It has 4 Picatinny mounts, 2 on each side here, 1 on top and then 1 at the bottom, so I can mount whatever attachments like this red dot and angle foregrip on the blaster. For full disclosure, Boys sent me this kit a few years ago, free of charge by his kind nature, sent it down to me for this build and I've just not gotten around to it, which is on my behalf. If you're looking to attempt this print yourself, I'll leave a link in the description where you can download this file from Thingiverse and print it out yourself. One thing to note during the printing process is this section here where the bolt runs through. This section can be quite delicate when printing and mine actually snaps during the printing process, but it still looks awesome in my opinion and is not detrimental to the functionality of the blaster. I added an angle foregrip to the front of the blaster to carry that really nice aggressive look up the front. Really nice place to put your hand while you're shouldering the blaster. Speaking of shouldering, I have the Worker PDW stock at the back here and it's really nice to brace up against in combination with the grip at the front. I also have a metal artifact trigger in here as well. This touches the MVJ03 valve inside the blaster which operates the supercore inside. Aesthetically, I wanted a really public-friendly blaster to take outside to wars. The orange and the Gear Up allows me to have that really nice and safe aesthetic while having this really cool, aggressive look to it as well. I carry this orange theme throughout the blaster to ensure a really nice, public-safe look while I'm taking it outside. I contrasted the orange with the black pieces throughout the blaster as well as some tiny little silver details throughout it as well, like the silver mag adapter as well as the barrel showing itself at the front too. That's mainly it for the aesthetics of the blaster. Let's move to the ergonomics. A core objective of the build was to have the same operation and firing power as any supercore build, yet in a more maneuverable and compact form factor. This build is just shy of being 10 centimeters shorter than a regular supercore build, taking into account when that other build is using a Spectre brass hybrid barrel. As you can see, I put it next to my supercore Crimson Recon and you can see the overall length difference there. This build is considerably lighter than a traditional HPA supercore build just by removing a lot of the plastics and unnecessary pieces throughout the blaster. It comes in at about just under 500 grams in weight difference. While that doesn't seem like a lot, carrying that around for a full day, including something on your back, blaster in hand, darts, battle belt as well, it can all add up. So shaving a bit of weight, yet having that same firing capability is a very powerful advantage out on the field. The angled foregrip and stock combination allow for a remarkably comfortable shouldering position, allowing me to get into position very quickly when I have targets downrange. The adjustable stock also means that when I want to go super CQB with my SMG build, I can collapse the stock all the way down and run around very quickly. How I'll run it most of the time is that it's in this mid-range here where it's not too far away from me, not yet too close, so I can still run around very quickly, but I still have a nice length so I can shoulder the blaster if there are targets that are further away from me. So with that, let's move on to the performance. Now, there are no surprises that this blaster kicks ass. With a supercore at its heart and when connected to an adjustable air source like an LPA compressor or HPA tank, it allows me to hit whatever FPS I want to play at whatever game I'm attending. However, this Gear Up Recon build does have an FPS cap and accuracy limit. And this is due to the fact that the added pressure when turning up the PSI from the external air source no longer inflicts extra energy onto the dart due to the shortened barrel. This blaster's performance ranges from 150 FPS all the way up to 220. At 35 PSI, I can comfortably hit 150 FPS for my local family-friendly games, but when we go to some more hardcore events, I can turn it up to 55 PSI and get 220 FPS out of the build. As I said before, the barrel is just simply not long enough for the dart to harness the extra pressure that the external air source can give it. Anything above 220 FPS, the barrel just simply can't inflict enough pressure behind the dart to give it that extra performance. If I were to extend the barrel to allow for extra performance, then the overall barrel length would be futile to the build. Thus, this performance cap exists at 220 FPS. That means that this blaster has a definite role that it plays, which is very much a CQB close combat style of blasting. A potential remedy for this blaster limitation within the barrel could be a hybrid barrel, which Spectre makes. Might have to hit him up. A hybrid barrel is where we have an aluminium outer barrel, but we have a brass inner barrel, which works with the Supercore. So in future, I might be able to pick one of those up and help me reach some higher FPS. The semi-automatic nature of the Supercore means all I have to do to function this blaster is shoulder it and pull the trigger to fire. The greatest thing about this blaster is that I don't have to operate a bolt or rechamber a dart once I fire it. I can keep my blaster aimed at my target, send out a dart, and then when I want to follow up a shot once I'm recharged from my LPA tank, or if I'm hooked up to a HPA tank, I can simply press the trigger as fast as I can and send darts downrange. And because I have a Blaster Tech scar on the end, those shots are super accurate. Another great thing about the Supercore is that it actually works with my external LPA compressor. I obviously can't spam the trigger though, because the LPA system can't provide enough air quick enough to the system to allow me to send another follow-up shot if I was to fire my first. The charge times vary depending on what PSI you want to achieve with the build. So if I'm going for some higher FPS games, the charge time will be longer on the LPA system because it has to cycle through and compress more air. Whereas at the lower games where I'm shooting a lower FPS, it has to compress less air to get that same performance, so the charge time is quicker. The overall performance of the blaster is comparable to any Springer or high-end flywheel build on the market. So with that, let's take the blaster outside and I'll show you it firing.
I'll admit that these results aren't flattering for the Recon. However, the weather and darts played a big part in that. In the first test, I achieved a high of 168 FPS with a low of 140 FPS at 35 PSI. I'll traditionally run this pressure at Superstock events to achieve 150 FPS. For the second test, I ran the blaster at 55 PSI with the same darts. The barrel fit and heat played a large factor in its inconsistency on this occasion. In this test, I achieved 206 FPS as a high and a low of 154 FPS. A great thing about the Recon being an air blaster is that if I want more pressure, I can turn it up. I mostly run the blaster at 55 PSI for high FPS games.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. I truly appreciate it. If you want to catch up with me when I'm not making videos, you can check out my Instagram and Facebook links in the description. If you're in Brisbane and want to come to an event, the link is in the description for the Brisbane Area Nerf group. If you want to check out more of my content, I've got some war footage here, as well as a blaster overview in here as well. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.